commentary, heckling, things of that nature, let's keep it in the chat. With that, let's go ahead and officially kick things off. We are in the decade of the endpoint. There are more endpoints now than there have been at any other point in history, and I think that we only expect that that number is going to go up. One thing that is also changing is the nature in which people are interacting with endpoints. The endpoints, used to be it was just a workstation or it was just a server. However, now we are talking about tablets, about phones, different types of network devices that might be touched by employees. 70% of employees are likely to touch 4+ devices every single day. And so that could be workstations, it could be other types of devices. The diversity in technology that an employee is going to touch is something that needs to be taken into account as that environment, the IT environment, becomes more diversified. Uh, Now, this is going to bring a proportional amount of threats, or in the very least, the attack surface that is revealed by having these additional devices is going to be something that you need to account for. 90% of organizations say they cannot effectively manage and monitor all of the endpoints in their fleet. That is only going to lead to more issues. And we can see that 77% of organizations have suffered a cyber attack from poorly managed or unmanaged endpoint that they really had no visibility over. Now, these challenges of managing endpoints, these are compounded by some of the other challenges being faced by those in IT today. Some of these might seem like old challenges, but they still remain relevant. Uh, since COVID, we've seen an explosion in hybrid and remote work. It's estimated that by 2026, 76% of US knowledge workers, and I did have to look this up, it is essentially defined as people who think for a living, they're going to be remote. And having the tools in place to have visibility over all that fragmented, disparate workforce that's spread out all over the country and potentially the globe is critical. Uh, in addition to that, you also need to adequately scale the security side of the operation. Security concerns are only going to be more and more important as we move forward. I think we have, unfortunately, recurring examples of that pretty much every week as to why security is so important and why maintaining a good security posture is critical, vital in today's age. Um, we also need to make sure that we have visibility. A lack of visibility is something that, as we'll discuss, is a clear barrier to organizations. And when we talk about security gaps, that comes from not being able to have a view of all the devices that they have in their fleet today. And so having something that scales as the operation is going to grow is crucial. Businesses grow. It is what they do. Uh, Number got to go up. So businesses are going to have to grow every year, and the IT team needs to be able to grow and scale with them. And then finally, to efficiently expand your operation, we need to take manual processes and automate them in some way. Now, this could be acceleration of the process. So maybe certain components of a manual repetitive process are automated where they can be, while still retaining some human intervention. But also, where can we take a process and automate it end to end as safely and effectively as possible? This is something I personally am very interested in, probably in part because I have done a lot of things very manually, and I have no desire to go back to that. So anything I can do to take a repeatable process and make that easier to do over time is something I'm always going to want to look into more closely. And we'll dive into some of my favorite examples as we go into um, the demonstration portion. And so, what are some of our trends here? I've mentioned that businesses are going to There we go. I've mentioned that businesses are going to run on more endpoints than ever. That's going to bring a proportional amount of attack surface that needs to be protected. We spoke about some of the challenges that are going to be faced in order to adequately manage your infrastructure. So, what are our solutions to some of these problems? Where can those in IT find some benefit through NinjaOne? And we've identified three broad trends that we think reflect pretty well on NinjaOne. And so we can see here that they are security and visibility, greater automation, more automation, and then improved resource management so that you're able to do more with less. which in my time in IT has been a truism I've encountered more and more. You're only going to need to do more with less, and you're going to have less time than ever to actually get the job done. And so we need the visibility, for all these endpoints that we're managing. We need the security and visibility in a single consolidated view. And we'll talk about how we have that visibility across not just your workstations and your servers, but then other device types as well. We need automation to empower technicians to be able to effectively manage hundreds or thousands of devices. And of course, we want to be efficient with our resources. A platform-based approach like NinjaOne is going to be able to replace multiple point solutions that might be dedicated to a particular task or function, but don't do much else than that. And generally, I'd say that licensing costs are going to be higher with the more tools that you have. So consolidation has a strong benefit to operational workflows in terms of your overall efficiency, but also in terms of decreasing costs. Now, how are we able to do all of this? NinjaOne is built on endpoint management, so this would be monitoring Windows, Mac OS, and Linux devices. But as I mentioned, we also have the ability to manage Android and iOS mobile devices in the same portal. In addition, this would also include your virtualized infrastructure, so things like your ESXi or Hyper-V hosts, as well as critical network infrastructure, switches, routers, firewalls, essentially anything with an IP address can be monitored using NinjaOne NMS. Now, the tiles with bright colors that we see here, these indicate features and functionality that pretty much anyone we talk to is interested in. It's core functionality of endpoint management. This would be ensuring that patches are installed for the operating system as well as third-party applications, that devices are protected with an AV and EDR tool, that applications required for regular operation are deployed, and that the end users have what they need to get the job done. On top of that, monitoring, alerting, and reporting to ensure compliance with various security settings, and to highlight when devices are in need of attention. When does a technician actually need to look at the device and assist? And then finally, we need scripting, automation, and self-healing to ensure scalability. We need to empower those technicians to manage numerous devices quickly and effectively. And certainly not to give shorter shrift to the other tiles that we see below that. But in addition, other features, critical features would be unattended and ad hoc remote access, NinjaOne backup, the ability to back up your files and folders, as well as images to the cloud or to local storage, ticketing, various ITSM integrations, and of course, deploying your next gen AV or EDR tool. We have a variety of integrations on that front. Now, when customers were switching to NinjaOne, 71% replaced four or more tools when implementing NinjaOne. And so there is, I think, a strong benefit to that. There are certainly a lot of negative outcomes that we can see from having a disjointed, sprawling stack that is all over the place. You can see some of them right here. Obviously, you're spending more time on training and enablement across a lot of different tools. It is commensurately, I think, going to be harder to hire. Retention could also be more difficult as well. There's additional licensing costs, as I mentioned, when you have those all those different tool stacks. They're, if you're lucky, maybe they're all licensed in the exact same manner, but chances are there's going to be some complexity there across all the various tools that you have. You have technician efficiency. A Jeff of all trades is rarely a master of one. And so when you have all these different tools, you end up with technicians who are maybe not as effective as they should be in all of them because they have to expand their mental bandwidth to be kind of okay in five, six, seven different tools as opposed to being really, really good in two or three. There are security challenges here. You have that increased attack surface across these different tool sets. You need to maintain a minimum level of compliance from the security perspective, create that minimum standard that all your vendors are going to adhere to or exceed. Uh, you have limited scalability. As much as we might want all these tools to speak with each other and communicate in the perfect way, they don't. And so you have a limited ability to automate tasks in between all these various services. They just don't communicate very well with each other oftentimes. And then lastly, you have a lack of visibility. How can you make a thoughtful, accurate, informed decision when you don't have the visibility and the information across your entire fleet. If you're making a decision based off of a partial picture, that is only more likely that you're not going to have all the information at your disposal to make the right decision. Now, there's a clear preference here moving forward. We can see that in the current approach, it's roughly 50-50. A little over half are currently with sort of a single vendor. However, if we look at this from what's the desired approach, we can see that most people would prefer, two-thirds would prefer to move to a single technology vendor, that would be easier for them. There would be a clear net benefit for them. And the next slide, I think, breaks that down a little bit more as to the why. We can see here some graphs that show the automation and security progress for those who are using a sprawling technology stack versus using something that's more consolidated. And so we know there's these negative outcomes. We know that there's a desire for additional consolidation in the market. And so here we can actually see the real world impact of a lack of consolidation, or more accurately, I guess I'll say, the effects of a sprawling tech stack and how that can be a limiting factor on the maturity of your IT operation. At a certain point, the disparate tool set, it is going to, be a bottleneck. It is going to be something that's difficult to get around in order to get to a place where you can have more automation and overall be more efficient from a platform-based approach. So what does this actually result in terms of improving your overall efficacy using NinjaOne? We can see that unpatched endpoints here are a core attack vector. As we said earlier, there's only going to be more endpoints. Employees are only going to touch more endpoints, and ensuring that we have not just the operating system, but third-party applications patched as well is critical. In addition, there are also more vulnerabilities. Last year, 2023, there were 65% more CVEs than in 2022. And again, I don't think anybody expects that number to go down. That is going to be a number that only increases. And therefore, we need to make sure that we have that protection in place, that endpoints are all adequately patched to protect against these CVEs. And speed is also a consideration here as well. It's nice to say, well, the patches get installed, eventually you have that eventual consistency, but it would be great to ensure that your patches are being installed as quickly as possible because the vulnerability disclosure time has dropped. So the speed of being able to push patches to your devices, that has only become more important. Now, what does this really look like, in terms of impacting a real world customer? We have Patra here, focusing strictly on patching. Moving to NinjaOne, they were able to automate the patching by eliminating 18 FTEs and 100 plus hours of manual tasks every month, as well as a 32 times reduction in the amount of time they spend on software deployment. This, again, speaks to me and my personal experience. I have been the one doing manual patching. I have been the one doing manual tasks. I didn't like it. It was certainly prone to human error, and it ate up a lot of time that I could have otherwise spent doing other things that actually required my expertise and not just sort of repetitive manual labor that has to be done by somebody. Looking at it from a different perspective here, we have the patching and the integrated EDR. We saw Great Plains Bank see a strong benefit from this. 10-minute deployment of EDR to 500 endpoints through NinjaOne, an almost 100% first pass success rate. Visibility to both the IT teams and the security teams. This is where integrated EDR can be a strong benefit on the security side, especially if your organization has sort of a siloed IT and security team, separate departments that don't always communicate well together. Integrated EDR gives visibility to the IT team in the endpoint management tool to be able to see the what threats are detected. Is AV deployed? Is it not deployed? Are there unprotected devices that don't even have an antivirus installed? All that will come from NinjaOne and be able to more strongly reinforce the security posture of an organization. So the brass tacks of it all, here looking at security and visibility, our first big trend. Orgs that use NinjaOne are going to have a fuller picture of their IT estate. They're going to have the information to make the right decision and have the avenue to improve their security posture. They're also going to see a shorter mean time to detection, or MTTD. We saw that customers switching to NinjaOne, they saw that drop to 4 minutes and reduced by at least 50%. This only, I think, supports the case I made earlier about the speed of NinjaOne being a critical factor. You want to respond quickly to any threats that could potentially be detected, and you want to have the visibility when things are potentially going wrong. And then finally, you need that visibility to make informed decisions, and overall visibility improved from 38% to 100% by customers switching endpoint management to NinjaOne. Our second big tenet here today, our second big trend, is building a culture of automation. How can we improve automation using NinjaOne? And this starts in a few different ways. I would actually highly recommend last week's webinar on assisting the help desk, who helps the help desk. That goes much longer on automation. But you can see here, you have to start with a plan. You have to have a clear strategy of what you want to automate to see a benefit. This is kind of a one-to-one situation here. You have a problem, you can then use automation to help solve that problem. How do you identify that? It comes from identifying your top tickets. It comes from hearing from your teams. There is off-balance sheet work that I think always gets missed by ticketing systems or however else things are being tracked. And so finding where that off-balance sheet time is going and seeing if you can automate it, I think is really critical. And then finally here, when we start to automate, we don't just want to roll things out to production immediately. We want to test. We want to have a test lab that mirrors the environment that we're going to be deploying to so that we're testing accurately against a proper control device. And we want to evaluate that. We want to push this automation out in stages to production so that we are ensuring that we're not creating more problems than we're solving. Now, this is an example that, again, I have personally experienced here that I would want to save anyone from because it is just a very annoying issue to deal with. Provisioning a brand new device. For some of you today, you might be using Autopilot and Intune to accomplish this. Some of you may not have a process in place at all. I know that back when I was in the business of managing devices day to day, I didn't really have a lot of automation around this, at least initially. It was largely a manual process, and it was a manual process that I did not like because it ate up so much time and prevented me from dealing with things that might have been, more desirable or at least more critical for me to deal with at that time. And so I actually have a video coming out soon, one of the YouTube videos I teased earlier about the process of automating this from a bare metal perspective. This would use a free PowerShell module called OSD Cloud to create bootable media. And you do a zero-touch experience through that, where you plug in the USB drive, you boot from that, and then you're able to use a provisioning package to include the NinjaOne agent. You're able to use an unattend.xml file to bypass the out-of-the-box experience on Windows devices. And then NinjaOne takes it home with the workflow that you see here. The device checks in, it receives its policy, and that policy is going to dictate automations that run to configure the device, to create a service account potentially, to deploy security configurations, to make the device more hostile to potentially malicious attackers, endpoint hardening. Then we might deploy software. We might deploy our EDR. If we're using integrated EDR, we might deploy a productivity app like Office 365. And then we can also take other actions, like perhaps taking a machine and checking it for any remote access tools that are undesirable, receiving an alert if maybe TeamViewer is installed so that we can remove TeamViewer when the primary remote access we're using through Ninja is NinjaOne Remote. And then, of course, we would want to patch, potentially create a backup of that device. And then finally, you have a ticket to provide auditing long term. Yes, this device was indeed provisioned, and here's all the steps that were taken. And so here we come to our final trend here, which is going to be resource management. Uh, platforms that a platform-based approach is going to overall provide better security and the potential for greater efficiency through automation. It's going to let you know when you have devices that are, or not devices, tools in your tech stack that are potentially overlapping in terms of functionality, in terms of capability. You might potentially sunset some of those tools if they're no longer relevant. You want to have a platform that is going to have cross workflow automation. You want to be able to cover all the devices that you have in your fleet, or as many as you possibly can. And that's where having the ability to say control software deployments on workstations and servers, just like you can with Android tablets, with iPhones, with iPads through NinjaOne MDM, you get that similar experience in one portal to manage without the need to go elsewhere. And of course, the overall automation that we see is just going to improve the risk reduction and overall improve the efficacy of our help desk. And we can see this by the cost efficiency that people see when they switch to NinjaOne, 41% in FTE, with about, I'll say, a little over $750,000 in annual savings for IT staff. On top of that, we see that there's a benefit in retention with NinjaOne. A tool that is easier to use is generally one that people want to use. And so I think you can see firms switching to NinjaOne overall saw that they increased employee retention versus what they previously had with other tools. And then finally, we have an accelerated time to value here. Ninja is going to let you accomplish your goals at your speed without bottlenecking you. And with that, let's go ahead and we are going to jump into the demonstration portion to kind of show some examples of how NinjaOne is going to support your overall ecosystem. Stop my share and I will move over to my screen. While I'm doing that, I see a question here that I will answer from Claude. What does NinjaOne provide that Intune does not? Uh, so hopefully you can see my screen here just to address that question here. I think in comparison to Intune, one thing I think NinjaOne brings is speed. With Intune, you do have that eventual consistency. Configurations will be deployed to a device eventually. Uh, there's also some licensing complexity there. Not everyone has the same licensing, so there are certain feature sets that are not going to be capable across everyone. NinjaOne's licensing is much more flat, so it becomes much more realistic for everybody to have the same capabilities and have that visibility over all your devices. So that's what I would say is one great thing about NinjaOne is the speed, which I hope you see as we enter the demonstration portion here. So hopefully that answers your question, Claude. So here we see the main NinjaOne dashboard. Actually, I should be in this tab. But we see the main NinjaOne dashboard here, and I hope that you can see the visibility of important actionable information that we have as soon as we log in. So if this is the first view we see, we immediately know what's going on. I can see that we have two servers that are down right here. I can see that we have a threat that has been detected by our antivirus. I can see right below that we have vulnerabilities. This is actually something that is a new feature. It's in a beta state, and it allows you to import from your vulnerability tool to identify devices that have CVEs that need to be remediated in NinjaOne. So I can actually click on this or go up to the vulnerabilities tab here at the top and get insight into all the vulnerabilities that are loaded into this system. So if you're interested in this and you are a NinjaOne partner, definitely let your account manager know. They can turn this on for you. Other visibility here that we see, failed patches. When has an operating system patch failed to install? We can see right here, 2 devices have not installed a patch, but then over here, we can see that 4 devices have a pending patch. This means there is a patch in a manual state that we need to approve before it actually gets deployed to devices. Right below that, we're seeing the same information, but for third-party software application patching as opposed to the operating system patching. And then finally, right here, we can see devices that have a current triggered alert. The alerts are customizable. You get to alert on what you care about. Let's actually go and take a look at some of those alerts, and I think you'll see why they are important from a security and a visibility standpoint. Now, this is, I believe, Patch Tuesday, so we'll have patches coming out today. And one thing you'll see is a lot of these alerts that are triggered are alerts triggering today, letting us know that no OS patch has been installed in 30 days, which means that this device could be considered to be out of compliance. No patch has been installed in 30 days. To me, that indicates an issue. Now, obviously, in this case, I know that today is Patch Tuesday, and in all likelihood, this alert is going to go away sometime tomorrow as these devices continue to patch. But this, I think, gives insight into how Ninja is able to not just patch your devices, but reinforce and alert you whenever there's been an issue with patching. Let's actually go into a policy and take a closer look at this. We'll go to administration and then into policies down here. Now, the policy is the lifeblood of Ninja. It's the engine that makes Ninja go. The vast majority of the settings that you care about from a day-to-day perspective are going to be included inside of a policy. And so if we go to our very top policy here, the Windows Workstation policy, this is for all our Windows workstations. You can see on the left-hand side here all the submenu options that make the policy so critical. Now, first and foremost, we have our conditions. This would be what detects an issue and then alerts you whenever it's not in compliance or the device otherwise needs attention. We have our scheduled automations that can run on a recurring basis. The new device provisioning one, something we'll certainly talk about here in a few minutes. We have our Windows patching settings. We have our antivirus deployment. And so this would allow us to deploy an integrated EDR. In this case, we have SentinelOne, but we also offer integrations with Webroot, with Bitdefender Gravity Zone, and with CrowdStrike. Then finally, here we have our software. This is the third-party software application patching. And then also, we would have our backup capability tied to policies as well. So I hope you can see here why the policy is so critical, why it's so important. This is a lot of the day-to-day stuff that I think anyone cares about with regards to endpoint management. Now, with these conditions, we saw this created an alert on our dashboard earlier about the device not patching within a certain period of time. And you can see the other checks that we have going on here to ensure that devices that need attention are being taken care of. The initial audits that we see right here are very useful for letting us know when a device is not in compliance with a particular setting. A case in point, from a security perspective, I want to know when my device does not have AV installed, or there are otherwise issues with it being disabled or the definitions not being up to date. And so this is a native condition for Windows workstations that lets you know whenever a device is unprotected. Is the AV missing? Is it disabled? Is it outdated? Are there multiple AVs installed that could potentially cause an issue? And of course, if we want to, we can ignore Microsoft Defender if we are saying that doesn't count. We can also see BitLocker status. Whenever BitLocker is off, we can go ahead and alert. Another option here would be to audit system restore status. I might want to know when system restore status is not turned on. In this case, we're using a script to check for that. This is a template library script. The template library script is something in NinjaOne that contains scripts created by NinjaOne engineers to solve common problems in the IT space. For example, checking to see what the system restore status is. And we can then go ahead and create an alert whenever the system restore status is not in its desired state. So that would be step one. We identify that system restore status isn't quite how we would like it to be set up. But over on the right-hand side, we're then going to go ahead and run a script to try and fix the issue, which would be toggling system restore on. The critical third step here is, did this work? And that is determined by the when no longer met setting that we see right here. This is going to go ahead and reset the alert whenever the condition is no longer valid, which in this case would mean that our system restore status is what it is expected to be. It's within its default parameters. And then if it's not, well, and obviously if it wasn't, it would continue the alert. Let's go down to our patching side of things. You can see we have a couple of patching specific alerts here. One of them is if the CVSS score of the patch is above a certain threshold. In this case, it's a 9.0. So if I have a 9.0 CVSS patch available for 2 or more days, this is going to alert me. This could also create a ticket as well. So whenever there's an out-of-band patch with a critical vulnerability, you can know that immediately. So that way it can be deployed quickly and effectively. You can see down here the ability to create a ticket from any of these conditions that we're seeing here. In this case, this is NinjaOne ticketing, and we're creating with a closed loop condition. The closed loop condition does what we saw earlier, which is the when no longer met functionality. If we've solved the issue, we want to take that issue off our dashboard, off of our ticketing board, so that we can focus on problems that are still active and live. We saw this one earlier. When a device hasn't had an operating system patch installed within 30 days, we want to create an alert. And you can see here that this could be operating system patching. It could be third-party software patching. It could be a 30-day period, as I have set here, or it could be any of the other selections from this dropdown. And you also have the option here to ensure that you're only tracking patches that come from Ninja directly and not perhaps auto updates on the device itself. Um, And lastly, I have another patching related check in here, which is the Windows Update service disabled? This is just something that has come to me from past experience, where sometimes the devices that you are managing, you have not had control over them from inception, from the point that they were provisioned, and therefore the device might not have the proper settings. I have walked into a building that I was taking over, and that device had Windows Update disabled on every single device, and none of the machines were running a genuine version of Windows. So just to show you, it's always good to have a lot of these checks to ensure that whoever preceded you is not leaving any surprises that you have not found. I always believe in being prepared for these sorts of eventualities. And so that's a very good one as well. We do also have a template library script that does check for Windows licensing. I'm not running that in here because we are running this all on VMs, so it probably would trigger all the time. A couple other security focused conditions here that I think are very useful. You can see the brute force detection when multiple login attempts have been detected, when a new user account has been created. This is all being monitored through event IDs. So this is very handy to have insight on and have historical logging on that's more easily accessible from within a SaaS solution like NinjaOne, as opposed to having to parse individual event logs across all your devices. Now, we saw earlier that antivirus and EDR deployment, another fundamental component of having a good security posture, is a simple drop down here. So, integrated AV, you just need to select the AV that you're using, and this will deploy to all devices that are assigned to this particular policy. And of course, if you're leveraging multiple AV providers, you can integrate them and create separate policies for that deployment. Lastly, on our security and visibility front, we're talking about third-party software patching. You can see here that this workflow is going to look very similar to the Windows patching side of things or the operating system side of patching. You have a scan schedule, which will identify new patches, and an update schedule that will actually deploy patches that have been approved. How does something get approved? It's all determined by these options down here. You can reject certain categories, you can approve certain categories, or time delay approve them, giving you a grace period in case Microsoft releases a bad patch. And you also have the middle ground option of a manual state, which is going to mean a human being has to approve the patch before it actually gets deployed out to any devices. Software patching looks very similar here, scan schedule, update schedule, with that separate tab here to control what software is being deployed. Now you can see here, we have the uh, Winget integration beta enabled in this environment. And so that means that we have over 5,000, I think in total, over 5,500 applications that are available in our third-party patching repository. We've seen really good success with this. Um, this has drastically expanded the number of applications that Ninja is able to patch on our Windows workstations, which is, of course, I think where you have the most diversity in applications that need to be patched. And here you can see quite a few applications in here, including Microsoft applications. Uh, every version of Office, I think back to 2003 is included in here. Not that you would probably need to go back that far. You do have the option for some of these applications to install them fresh out of the box, so that's very convenient. However, you do also have the ability to upload your own installers, MSIs, EXEs, PKGs, DNGs into NinjaOne's install application repository so that you can easily push those out. Question from Stuart here that I will answer live real quick, and John as well. Any integration with Sophos? So there is not an integration in the drop-down manner that we saw inside of policies, where you can go ahead and just select Sophos from that drop-down list. But Sophos actually has created a series of PowerShell scripts to allow you to easily manage from within NinjaOne, especially the deployment process. So no full integration, but Sophos definitely has some resources to make it easier to deploy through NinjaOne. And of course, what you can do within policies is create that same automated deployment by monitoring for a particular piece of software. So case in point here, I am looking for Sophos. If I could type, I'd be looking for Sophos. I'm using asterisks on either side of the title there so that they're being used as wildcards. It'll find anything that happens to have Sophos in the name, not just Sophos AV or Sophos agent. And so I can create that. This would create an alert, but I don't really care about the alert. What I care about is responding to this with a script, which would be that PowerShell script from Sophos to deploy the Sophos agent. Obviously, NinjaOne would recognize that Sophos was then deployed, and the when no longer met would clear this alert and corresponding ticket off your dashboard. So no dedicated integration, John and Stuart, but there is some avenues there. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic here, which is going to be automation. Now, we've already seen how we can automate some things through NinjaOne using the conditions. The conditions are very useful because you can look for a particular metric, and whenever you're not in compliance with that particular metric, we can then run a script in response to that, which puts us back in compliance. I've shown a few examples of this with System Restore. You could do it with UAC. If you're not within your UAC defaults, you want to run a script to put you at your user account control defaults. But let's look at this from the perspective of what I mentioned earlier, which is we're provisioning a brand new device. How does that work within NinjaOne? So we're actually going to go back into our policies here, and we're going to go over to the scheduled automations on the left-hand side. Now, there are a variety of scheduled automations here. You'll see that I have some custom fields updates. These are running on a recurring schedule to make sure that my custom fields are updated with data. Custom fields are Ninja's customizable data fields. You can manually enter data into them. You can populate from an API call if you'd like, and you can also interface with them through scripts and through the CLI. So you could set values into custom fields while also retrieving information and variables set within a custom field for use within your script. And in this case, I'm just running these custom fields on a recurring basis so that my information that I'm looking at from the help desk perspective is always up to date. I also love this example here, which we talked about during the PowerPoint, which is new device provisioning. Now, this is running on a schedule of run once immediately. You can see all the various options that we have here. Um, we have recurring ones like daily, weekly, and monthly. Also, on system startup or on user login, every single time the device boots up or user logs in, we might need to run a certain set of scripts. We might also need to run this on a recurring interval. So maybe every couple of hours or every couple of minutes, we need to run this. That seems a little excessive. Uh, in this case, I'm provisioning a brand new device, and I like the run once immediately option for this. Run once immediately is an incredibly powerful scheduling option. It runs across all devices that are currently online. It runs across any offline devices once they come back online. And it also runs on any new devices to join this policy in the future. So it's great for a scattershot automation that everybody needs to get, but then also anybody newly onboarded to the organization also needs to get. Now you can see over here that I have a series of automations running, and this is designed to provision the device. I mentioned earlier that I have a process where I image a device, include the agent with a provisioning package, and use an unattended XML file to bypass the out-of-the-box experience. At that point, the Ninja agent takes care of actually configuring the device and provisioning it for use by the end user. What am I doing first? I'm changing my power and my sleep settings so my device does not go to sleep with the defaults as I'm trying to have all this automation occur. Second to that, I am enabling BitLocker. After that, I start to deploy EV1. All good security measures, but again, going back to talking about automating things carefully, you want to ensure that these automations are not going to disrupt business operations. I have certainly seen legacy business applications that haven't been updated in forever be broken by trying to do something that is good security practice, like disabling weak TLS applications. But at the same time, if you disrupt the business, that's not really going to be something that is going to work for most people. So as ever, security will need to be balanced with the needs of the business. Beyond that, we're also optimizing the event log, blocking Microsoft account creation, enabling the Windows firewall, turning on system restore. And then, of course, I don't know why somebody keeps changing this. You reboot after you install all the applications. And so you can see here some of our native repository items. I shouldn't say native repository, the install application repository, which allows you to upload your MSIs and EXEs. We're using Google Chrome and Slack here for our deployment. I have a question from Alani here that I'm going to go ahead and read out. He says, in a previous webinar, I stated it was possible to run a scheduled automation on demand. In that webinar, I set the schedule to none. And if you see here, none is a perfectly valid option here. Um, is that what allows it to be selected for an on-demand execution? No, it is not. Any scheduled automation can be run on demand. You only need to leverage the none option if you don't want the automation to run on any sort of scheduled basis. But any automation in the scheduled automations that we see here, you can go ahead and call these uh, on demand, in addition to whatever scheduled or unscheduled settings they might have. So hopefully that answers your question. Lonnie, just so you know, to see them on demand, you need to go to the play button. You need to hit run an automation and then select from policies in order to see these scheduled automations. I will show this in the future as soon as I get out of this menu here in a little bit. Question from Donnie. Is there a way to turn on Windows patching and not lose keeping the history inside Windows updates? So I believe what this is referring to is the ability when you go to check for updates locally on your device that you're not seeing the results of what Ninja has done. Unfortunately, that's a Microsoft limitation. There is no way for us to update that. I think it's actually tied to that button press. So even though NinjaOne is using Windows API calls to call the patches and install them, that check for updates option. Unfortunately, Donnie, there's just not a way for us to update that. We can certainly show compliance reports and prove that we are in fact patching. It's just no way to update that in the GUI. That is just what Microsoft has made so. So we can see the automation here and we can see the benefit of being able to call these on demand. Uh, So right now I'm using a process that I don't want to run on demand. I want this to be fully automated. But let's say I had something that an operation that I wanted to execute on a not a scheduled recurring basis, but on an on-demand basis. I can actually go ahead and package several automations in here. And then when I go to execute it at the device level, it's very easy. So let's back out of here and actually see what that looks like. So if I have a series of scripts that I want to run to try and resolve an issue, I package them in one script block, which we just saw there. And that means when I come to a device, and we'll go into a device right now, I can go to the play button, I can go to run automation, and I can go down to from policy. Lonnie, this is the part that I think you might have been missing. And from here, all these automations, regardless of what their scheduling type is, I am able to go ahead and call these on demand. So let's say I wanted to update all my custom fields. Well, I don't want to run all 16 scripts that I need to update each custom field individually. No, I want to select my custom fields bulk update and then run that automation, and all the scripts run sequentially, one after the other. Keep in mind here that a failure is not going to prevent the succeeding script from running. So don't worry about that. One thing to know is that you cannot put a reboot in the middle of a script block and expect it to continue. So if you do need to reboot as a part of your scheduled automation, you want to reboot at the very end, at the conclusion of every other automation that runs before that. And you can see over here, the speed that I mentioned earlier, scripts are already running. We are already getting feedback in here with our OS version here, with our Ninja installation date. So even though I just clicked this, I already have this series of automations running, updating, completing. It takes the human error out of the equation. I don't need to worry about somebody running an exact sequence of scripts, one right after the other, to make sure it's all right. It's one click and I get an all-inclusive automation that springs from that. Another great automation possibility here is using the device search grid. Now, this also plays a role in your visibility as well. You can actually see on the left-hand side here that I actually have many of these saved. I want to see all of my online patch-enabled servers right here. And I get this visibility right here, and that allows me to select everything and then take an action across these devices. In this case, this is a patching-focused search group. So I might want to go and run an OS update to scan for any new patches that are available or apply any patches if this is out of band. I have the same thing here for any devices that have a approved third-party patch that needs to be deployed. I can see this device here has a patch that needs to be installed, so I can select here and then go ahead and run my software update apply across all devices that have either a failed or an approved patch that needs to be reattempted in the moment. Now, another great option here is this group, the troubleshooting group. We talked about the benefit of having data automate to custom fields. This is something that shows me disk usage percentage, very useful to know what devices might potentially be low on disk space. But if I scroll over a little further, you're going to see some customizable columns where I'm actually running check disk scans and SFC scans every week and updating this custom field. They're only running in verify only mode. I'm not actually doing any repairs preemptively. But whenever there's a device with an issue, I can come here and get insight and say, well, on this device here, there are unfixed errors for check disk. There are also unfixed SFC errors as well. That gives me a pretty good idea of where I need to start looking whenever I'm engaging in the troubleshooting process, as opposed to having to go and say, okay, well, maybe it's check disk. Let's go ahead and run that and wait. Maybe it's SFC. Let's go ahead and run that and wait. By automating the process of updating this information on a recurring basis, by creating these search groups that give quick and easy visibility to your technicians, this is only going to improve the standardization of your IT operation. It's only going to make your IT team faster and more effective. Question from Lori. Can you set up these views and publish globally to ensure techs use all the same ones? Yes, you can. You can save these groups, and there are permissions when you save them. Let's actually go ahead and save one right now. If I can click around my video face, we can go ahead and save as a new group here. And then the sharing here, it can be private or visible to every system administrator, or you can then delegate to specific technician roles who should have access to this. So yes, these groups can be created from a system admin level, and you can delegate them down to help desk technicians who might not have these created for themselves. The favoriting, I will say, that's all on them. You have to tell them to favorite them. You can also search from the very top search bar here. You can see if I hit /, that is a keyboard shortcut I can access from anywhere, and it does search for your groups as well. So if I'm looking for my troubleshooting devices right there, I can click on my group and I get all my devices in here with all that information nice and easily accessible to me. Another good option here, asset information. Again, heavily leveraging custom fields here. You can see that I have my assigned user, I have my asset tag information, I have a custom field where I've set an operational status. Is it operational assigned? Is it operationally not in use? When was the device install date? What's the calculated device age right here? When was Ninja installed on this device? Serial numbers. And all this information can be sent out on a reported basis, or we can export in the top right here. We can go ahead and export with all our visible columns, or we can come over here into our reporting section and create a report to have this sent out on a regular basis. For example, I might want to know when I have any of my unhealthy MDM devices. I can click on that, and if we had any MDM devices that were showing in an unhealthy state, they would show right here. The same for if I had any devices with failed patches, operating system patches, or failed software patches. I'm able to use those search groups to then also be a report that I can send out to people. Additionally, you can also limit the scope of devices that you're reporting on using those filters that we saw earlier. You can see them up here at the very top. I might want to look for just Windows devices, so Windows Desktop. I might look for a Windows laptop here as well. We'll just stick on workstations, desktops, and laptops. I might also look only for devices that are currently up, online, and connected to Ninja. I can then go ahead and save this up here at the top. I can additionally use more filters to narrow down the devices that I'm looking at. For example, I might look at BitLocker status, show me devices with BitLocker disabled. And so right now I have 6 machines in this environment that don't have BitLocker enabled that are also currently online and are workstations. And so what I can do here is save this and say this is devices with BitLocker disabled Windows Workstation. I can go ahead and save that. Now I can then target an automation to occur across this group. I'll go over to my tasks here. I will create a brand new task. Let's say this is to enable BitLocker, like so. I'll set this up to run on a schedule. Let's do maybe weekly, every Friday. 9 a.m. Central Time. That seems pretty safe. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add in our script here to enable BitLocker. Now, here's the cool part, the targets. What devices are we targeting for this? Who's running this script? You have a couple options here. You can select an organization or multiple organizations. This would be a static selection. So these organizations or these devices, they would stay selected until you came in here and manually deselected them. However, my favorite option here is the groups. We use the group that we just created to target the search parameters rather than the list of devices itself. And so this makes it a dynamic option here. I want to see where BitLocker is disabled on Windows workstations. Those are going to be the only 6 devices that this script runs across initially. But due to the dynamic nature of the groups, as you enable BitLocker on those machines, they'll automatically fall out of that group. They wouldn't even be detected by the search. Conversely, as you onboard new devices into NinjaOne, you're able to then go ahead and see those devices automatically added to the group, therefore automatically having BitLocker enabled for them. Now you'll notice we also enabled BitLocker in the device provisioning section. This is just an alternative avenue for you, showing you all the different ways that you can automate using NinjaOne. With that, I'm going to bring out a very special guest. Actually, I think we have a poll that we want to run first. So let's go ahead and run a poll. I think this is a review where you can tell me how good you thought this overall webinar experience was and where we can improve it. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. First.lastname@ninjaone.com, jeff.hunter@ninjaone.com, and you can also reach out to me on Discord as well. If you are not a member of the NinjaOne community Discord, I would highly recommend it. We'll go ahead and pop a link in the chat. And with that, let's go ahead and bring out JP to announce the winner of our prizes for today.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Great job as always. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Glad to have everyone here for another webinar. Glad to see some familiar faces in the chat. Just want to let you know we have some more webinars upcoming this month. I'll go ahead and pop a resource now. That's a link to our events page where you can see what's happening in the future. We have all our August webinars there, and then we'll be setting up our September webinars soon as well. There's also some resources there for our YouTube channel, which we previously discussed, and the Discord, which you can go ahead and join. We're about a little over 5,000 strong now. It's a great place if you need to find more resources, talk directly with the community team, talk with other community members about great solutions for NinjaOne. But for now, yeah, I'll go ahead and get right to the giveaway. So yeah, drum roll, please. Drums in the chat. Today's winner is, one moment, I had it pulled up. Where are you? And I might pronounce your name wrong. So excuse me for that, but it is Jacob Vilches. So big congrats to Jacob. I'll be reaching out with a email later today on how to claim your prize. As you can see, there's a choice of Gucci sunglasses, an iPad, some high-powered binoculars, or a Steam Deck. So get to thinking about which one you want to pick, and I'll be reaching out soon. And I just want to say thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one on August 20th. Check that events page link. Thanks.
Thank you very much, JP. And I know we have a bunch of questions in the Q&A section, so lightning round, I will do my best to get to as many as possible. Joshua says, will you be opening more applications to your catalog? Is there a feature request list? I would highly recommend the Winget integration. If you want to contact your account manager, they can turn that Winget integration on for you. That is a huge expansion of our list. That being said, please, yes, submit a feature request for any specific applications that you would like us to support that we currently don't already offer. Ryan asks, with that PowerShell module you talked about earlier, will that basically allow us to have the same kind of setup as Autopilot setup in Intune provides? I would say, yes, it gets you to a very similar spot. I will say the one thing that Autopilot has that makes it a really good feature is the device is enrolled at the point of purchase, essentially. So as you're purchasing from a vendor, the device already has Autopilot installed. In the workflow that I'm discussing, you're still having to have the device shipped to you so that you can then go ahead and insert a USB or Pixie boot so that you can start the imaging process. So I would say that is definitely one advantage that Intune is going to have over the process that I'm talking about. But obviously, you could use Autopilot to Intune and then deploy Ninja and do the same device provisioning from the Ninja side that I just showed. That might be faster than doing it through Intune natively. So hopefully that answers your question, Ryan. Is it worth investing in the NinjaOne if I don't have on-premise servers? This is from Claude. I think any endpoint that you have, virtualized or physical, that is running Windows, Linux, or Mac OS could be benefited from having NinjaOne installed. I think you're going to see an improvement in the speed and management. You're going to see an overall improvement in your top-down management. I just overall think it's valuable for anybody who's running any of our supported operating systems. Uh, with the Winget integration, this question from Neil, will it be possible to see which installed applications are available in Winget? Not today. We are working on that to make it easier to select applications for patching that are already deployed to your endpoints in the field. So would highly recommend making a feature request for that, but I know that's already under consideration by our patching team. Has certainly been a request we've heard a lot of. John has a question. Under conditions and scheduled automations, his list is much smaller. Um, so what I'd recommend, John, is I'd highly recommend reaching out to your account manager and getting some time with a sales engineer. Sales engineers are included with a NinjaOne subscription. Uh, you can schedule time with one anytime you'd like, and the sales engineers are experts on using NinjaOne and can give you a tour and answer any questions that you have. So yes, anyone who has any questions about training, if you want to see more, please reach out to your account manager and talk to them about sales engineers. I used to be a sales engineer. That's what I did at the first 3.5 years here at Ninja was work on the sales engineering team, and I trained a lot of them. So I can personally vouch for the fact that they know their stuff. So yes, please use them as a resource. There is a reason why they're there. They're there to help you become a expert ninja at NinjaOne. Question from David. Can system startup be used to launch an app in the foreground for a specific user? Absolutely. You can run scripts in either a system context or in a current user context. So yes, that is absolutely something that you can do, although it might be more beneficial to just modify the native startup config in Windows rather than having Ninja do that. Question from Phil. Does the BitLocker script get and store the recovery key? Natively, Ninja will detect a recovery key, whether it's enabled through Ninja or not, and display it in the GUI. So if we go up here to the top, type in BitLocker, I will find a BitLocker device right here. Go to custom fields, not custom fields, to details. You can store it in a custom field as well if you'd like, but you can come over here to details, or you can go over to disk volume, and then right there is that BitLocker recovery key, which I definitely should not be exposing on a webinar to hundreds of people. And John, yes, if you have any questions, please reach out to your account manager. Success@ninjaone.com, I think, is our customer success email. So yes, please feel free to reach out to your account manager if you have any questions. We are very happy to help you. All right. And I already answered Lori's question on that front. I think that's everything that I can answer in the time that I have left. I know I've already gone over. So yes, if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. And thank you very much for being here today, and take care.